Giving freedom to the Palestinian people doesn't mean less freedom for Jewish people. They can work it out. And absolutely under no condition should be children be imprisoned. And she didn't even have her basic international law respected. She did. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mary Chris, and for today's video we are going to react to Democracy Now! Again. I love this video. Yes, I have a lot of series in my video, like my booktubes, that I will continue, but as a busy mom, I need to get ready anyways. Like today I have to go and get some errands done. This is just so easy for me because A, I love educating myself with the news, and B, I like to give up my opinion. So this is just so perfect for me because I can get ready to go outside and still get things done, right? Because I have a lot of things to do today, and today is Monday. It's actually a civic holiday in Toronto, so happy long weekend to everyone here in Canada. So that's why, and it's hot, and let's have some Perrier. Have some Perrier with me. My LaCroix hasn't arrived, so that's why we're just gonna have Perrier today. So I figure I have to get ready anyways, and I love to watch the news when I'm getting ready. I like to multitask. I have my laundry going, so we are being productive. It's so hot in Toronto. Oh my gosh. This morning I went for a run. Oh boy. It was not so. Anyways, it was hot. So let's get to it.
From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
There has been an attempt to assassinate me. I have no doubt that this all points to the extreme right in Venezuela in alliance with the right in Colombia.
Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has survived an apparent assassination attempt by drones packed with explosives. We'll get response from, among others, Alejandro Velasco, born and raised in Caracas, now executive editor of NACLA Report on the Americas. But first, 17-year-old Ahed Tamimi has been described as the Rosa Parks of Palestine. After 8 months, she's been released from an Israeli jail.
I hope for the liberation of Palestine, for the end of the occupation, for us to be able to go anywhere we want, anytime we want, without anyone preventing us from doing so.
Ahed Tamimi became a hero to Palestinians last year when a video went viral showing her slapping an Israeli soldier after she learned her cousin had been shot in the head by a soldier with a rubber-coated steel bullet.
My goal wasn't to hit him. I didn't intend to hit him. He had shot my cousin in the head, and my cousin was going to die because of the injury. The soldier at the front of my house was shooting at children and young men in the street. I'm not the one that went to him. He's the one that was at the front of my door.
We'll speak with Ahed Tamimi from her home in the West Bank. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. In Venezuela, President Nicolas Maduro has survived an apparent assassination attempt. Officials say drones loaded with explosives detonated above Maduro as he gave a nationally televised speech at a military event in Caracas on Saturday. Maduro has blamed the outgoing Colombian president for the attack.
There has been an attempt to assassinate me. I have no doubt that this all points to the extreme right in Venezuela in alliance with the right in Colombia, and that Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos is behind this attempt. I have no doubt. Preliminary investigations have indicated to us that there are various financial backers of this attempt on my life. They live in the United States and the state of Florida. Hopefully, President Donald Trump's government is willing to fight these terrorist groups which are attempting great attacks against countries on this continent, in this case, Venezuela.
U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton has denied U.S. involvement in the attack while speaking on Fox News Sunday.
Well, I can say unequivocally there was no U.S. government involvement in this at all.
We'll have more on Venezuela later in the broadcast. President Trump has admitted the purpose of a June 2016 meeting in Trump Tower between a Kremlin-connected lawyer and Trump's son, Don Trump Jr., among others, was to get dirt on Hillary Clinton. On Sunday, Trump tweeted, "Fake news reporting, a complete fabrication, that I am concerned about the meeting my wonderful son Donald had in Trump Tower. This was a meeting to get information on an opponent, totally legal and done all the time in politics, and it went nowhere. I did not know about it," he tweeted. Trump's tweet reveals he lied last year when he personally dictated a statement released by his son Donald Trump Jr., which claimed the meeting was mostly about U.S. adoption of Russian children. In Northern California, the Mendocino complex fire is now the fourth largest fire in California history, with more than 250,000 acres burning. The raging wildfire has destroyed 68 homes and forced evacuations in 3 Northern California counties. Meanwhile, the death toll from California's Carr fire rose to 7 over the weekend as climate change-fueled wildfires continue to blaze across California. The victim was a 21-year-old Pacific Gas and Electric worker who was working to restore power lines damaged in the fire. In Indonesia, a 7.0 magnitude earthquake has killed at least 91 people on the island of Lombok, with the death toll expected to rise. More than 200 people have been injured in Sunday's earthquake, which destroyed thousands of homes and buildings and forced more than 10,000 residents and tourists to evacuate the island. In Zimbabwe, a military crackdown against opposition activists continued over the weekend following last week's historic presidential elections. Longtime leader Robert Mugabe's former vice president, then acting president Emerson Mnangagwa, was declared the winner of Monday's election, although opposition parties have rejected the outcome, questioning the vote count. Human rights groups now say dozens of opposition activists have been abducted, attacked, or raped by unidentified men during a wave of post-election repression. The army has also been deployed to the streets of the capital, Harare. In South Sudan, President Salva Kiir and the rebel leader Riek Machar have reached a peace deal aimed at ending South Sudan's 5-year civil war, which has killed tens of thousands of people, displaced millions, and pushed South Sudan to the brink of famine. The conflict began in 2013 after President Kiir fired Machar, then serving as vice president. Under the new power-sharing agreement, Machar will return to power as one of 5 vice presidents. In Gaza, Israeli soldiers killed 2 Palestinian protesters Friday during the latest round of protests at the separation fence between Israel and Gaza. One of the victims was 15-year-old Muad al-Suri, who was shot in the stomach by an Israeli soldier. Gaza authorities say the Israeli military has killed at least 160 Palestinians and wounded over 15,000 more since the nonviolent Great March of Return protests began March 30th. Israel and Egypt are discussing a deal aimed at improving living conditions in Gaza. Meanwhile, in Israel, tens of thousands protested against the controversial new law defining Israel as the nation-state of the Jewish people. The protest was led by the Druze community, an ethnic and religious minority in Israel. President Trump has continued his racist attacks against prominent black journalists, athletes, and politicians. Early Saturday morning, he insulted NBA superstar LeBron James and CNN host Don Lemon, tweeting, quote, "LeBron James was just interviewed by the dumbest man on television, Don Lemon. He made LeBron look smart, which isn't easy to do," unquote. He said this just before leaving for Ohio. Trump also insulted California Democratic Congressmember Maxine Waters during a campaign rally in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, late last week, falsely claiming Waters has a very low IQ. In response to Trump's comments about LeBron James, Melania Trump said through her spokesperson, quote, "It looks like LeBron James is working to do good things on behalf of our next generation." Legendary NFL wide receiver Randy Moss paid tribute to African-American men and women killed by police during the NFL Hall of Fame induction ceremony in Canton, Ohio, Saturday night. He wore a tie stitched with the names Eric Garner, Tamir Rice, Sandra Bland, Akai Gurley, Freddie Gray, Walter Scott, Alton Sterling, Trayvon Martin, and other victims of police brutality or white vigilante violence. This is NFL star Randy Moss speaking in an interview after the NFL ceremony.
What I wanted to be able to express with my ties to let these families know that they're not alone. You know, I'm not here, voicing, but by these names on my tie at a big platform as the Pro Football Hall of Fame, there's a lot of stuff going on in our country, and I just want to let these family members know that they're not alone.
In Portland, Oregon, anti-racist, anti-fascist protesters faced off against members of the far right-wing group Patriot Prayer during a protest and counter-protest Saturday. Hours into the competing protests, police officers attacked the anti-fascist counter-protesters with pepper spray and stun grenades. Oregon's police chief has ordered a review of the use of force at Saturday's protest. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., the Metro Rail system's largest union announced its workers would not participate in a proposed plan to run separate trains for white supremacists planning to attend the far right-wing Unite the Right rally in D.C. on August 12th. After the rail workers' union leaked the proposal and vowed not to participate, the transit agency said it was no longer considering the plan to run special trains to accommodate the white supremacist protesters on the anniversary of the University of Virginia Charlottesville white supremacist protests. And today marks the 73rd anniversary of the U.S. atomic bombing of Hiroshima, August 6, 1945, which killed 140,000 people and seriously injured another 100,000. This is the mayor of Hiroshima, Kazumi Matsui, speaking at a commemoration ceremony earlier today in Japan.
With the current rise of self-centered nationalism and the modernization of nuclear weapons, we are seeing a return to attention amongst nations that has not been seen since the Cold War. I hope the Japanese government will play its role in realizing the pacifism that the Constitution manifests and leads the international community in enhancing dialogue and cooperation for a nuclear-free world.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. We begin today's show with a young woman described as the Rosa Parks of Palestine, 17-year-old Ahed Tamimi. Last year, Ahed became a hero to Palestinians after a video went viral showing her slapping a heavily armed Israeli soldier near her family's home in the occupied West Bank. The incident came just after Ahed learned her cousin had been gravely wounded by the Israeli soldier who shot him in the head using a rubber-coated steel bullet. Video of Ahed confronting the soldier went viral, elevating her into a symbol of Palestinian resistance. Ahed Tamimi was soon arrested in the middle of the night, charged with assault on an Israeli military court. She was sentenced to 8 months in an Israeli prison. She turned 17 there. She celebrated her 17th birthday behind bars. Her mother was also arrested and charged for incitement, in part for streaming video online showing the interaction between Ahed and the Israeli soldier. Both Ahed and her mother, Nariman, were released in late July. Last week, soon after she was released, Democracy Now!'s Nermeen Sheikh and I spoke with Ahed Tamimi from her home in the West Bank village of Nabi Salah. Ahed, welcome to Democracy Now! How does it feel to be free from jail?
طبعا شعور حلو كتير وهي يعني فرحة يعني بتمنى كل
It's an extremely wonderful feeling. I hope all prisoners, men and women, live to experience this joy. Of course, my joy is incomplete because my brothers and sisters remain in prison, and I hope that they are liberated and feel the happiness that I feel today.
Can you talk about the day you were released? Can you talk about that Sunday where the Israeli military took you and your mother?
طبعا طلعت على السجن على
I was released from prison at 5:30,
على رنتيس صاروا يحكوا لأهلي
and they took me to Antis, but they told my parents that I would be released at the Jabata checkpoint. It's about an hour between Antis and Jabata.
وحز جبارة ساعة ضلوا يلعبوا فيهم يحكوا لهم
They kept playing with my parents, telling them here, then there, then there. They made my parents go everywhere. At the end, they ended up dropping us off at the gateway to the village.
Can you explain, Ahed, what actually led to your arrest?
طبعا اعتقلوني بتهمة ضرب جندي. طبعا كان
They accused me of hitting a soldier. I had 12 charges brought up against me, but the main one was the charge of hitting a soldier in front of the door of my house.
يعني ما كانش هدفي إنه بس بدي أضربه عشان هيك بس.
My goal wasn't to hit him. I didn't intend to hit him. He had shot my cousin in the head, and my cousin was going to die because of the injury.
وكان رح يستشهد بسبب الإصابة.
The soldier at the front of my house was shooting at children and young men in the street. I'm not the one that went to him. He's the one that was at the front of my door.
مش أنا رحت له.
Can you talk about Mohammed, your, 15-year-old cousin, and explain what the Israeli soldier did to him? What does it mean to be shot at close range by a rubber-coated steel bullet?
طبعا كان
He was on a hill, and Israeli soldiers came up and shot him, and the bullet went through his head, went through here, and was lodged here.
طبعا كان في خطر كتير على حياته. كان يمكن
It was a lethal injury, and there was a chance he would die. His surgery took a very long time. It took a long time for him to begin to walk again and to stand up straight and everything.
ويوقف كل هاي الشغلة.
Can you tell us, Ahed, what happened after you were arrested? Where were you taken?
أخذوني على مركز.
They took me to an interrogation center, and then from there, they took me to prison.
You've said that there were several violations during your interrogation. What were those violations?
طبعا حقق.
The interrogation was inappropriate because there was verbal harassment. The interrogator would tell me, "Your hair is pretty, your eyes are pretty." There were no female soldiers with me. My parents weren't allowed to be with me, nor my lawyer. They threatened me with my family by saying, "If you don't confess, we're going to detain your entire family."
What kind of other questions did they ask you in that interrogation? And were there women present, family, your lawyer?
لا ما كانش في معي حدا.
No, there was no one with me. They asked me why I hit the soldier. There were a lot of questions the interrogator asked me during the interrogation.
في كتير أسئلة سألني إياها المحقق وقت التحقيق.
What did you tell them when they asked you why you slapped the Israeli soldier?
The entire time during the interrogation, I used my right to remain silent and did not confess anything.
How long did that interrogation, that one-sided interrogation, take?
There
were several interrogations. There were actually 4 separate interrogations. Each one was different. One was 4 hours, another 5 or 6.
And you were always alone, never with a lawyer or family?
Never. It was always just me alone with the interrogators.
With the male interrogators?
Yes, they were male interrogators.
Can you talk then about your trial?
They used to take me to court periodically, and they kept discussing the case and interrogating me until I was sentenced to 8 months.
And Ahed, what were the conditions like in the jail where you were held? Were there other children there?
The prison was very, very difficult. There were 29 other female prisoners with me. The numbers would go up and down depending on the situation. The conditions for female prisoners and male prisoners is difficult. The rooms are very, very small. There are no air vents. There was medical neglect and prevention of education. They attempted to prevent us from getting educated, but prisoners are always strong, persistent, and steadfast.
And who were the 29 other prisoners, and you said that the composition of the prisoners changed. Were they all women? Were they children?
طبعا كان في نساء وكان في
There were women and there were children. There was one woman who had been detained under administrative detention.
كان في أسيرة معتقلة.
Administrative detention means the detention is based on undisclosed files, so the detainee doesn't know why they're detained. Administrative detainees only attend administrative courts, and their sentence is always extended. At first, it might be 6 months, but it'll be renewed another time for 4 months. They'll tell you your administrative detention is 6 months, but then after 6 months, they'll tell you they've extended another 4. After 4 months, they'll tell you another 6.
بتحسبي ل 6 شهور على 6 شهور بحكوا لك جددنا لك كمان 4 بعد 4 شهور بحكوا لك
It's like the prisoner, may God rest his soul, Ali Jamal, who spent 7 consecutive years under administrative detention.
قضى 7 سنين متتالية من الاعتقال الإداري. طبعا في 350.
There are over 350 children in prison and 3 children who are under administrative detention. The conditions children endure in prison are very difficult. Prison isn't for anyone, and the prison administration puts a lot of pressure on them, so it's very difficult. I hope for the release of all prisoners, and especially children, as soon as possible.
Now, Ahed, following a criticism, widespread criticism, Israel instituted a separate military court for minors, for children, in 2009. What, if anything, has changed since then?
Nothing's changed. There are children who are in Israeli detention for over 10 years, children sentenced to 13 years, children sentenced to 14 years. The court just changed its name to a children's court. The judge is still a Zionist judge. The court is still a Zionist court. It's still a racist court, so nothing has really changed.
In your village, Nabi Saleh, if you could talk specifically about the situation with Israeli settlements in the area. Children in Nabi Saleh are reportedly taught how to deal with Israeli soldiers if they come to detain them.
طبعا في بقرية النبي صالح مستوطنة حلميش.
In Nabi Saleh, there's a settlement, the settlement of Halmish, which has taken over the Nabi Saleh water spring. It rarely gives the village of Nabi Saleh adequate water.
كافية. كمان قرية النبي صالح كثير يعني فيها يعني احتكاك دايما بيكون.
Almost everyone in Nabi Saleh has been detained or shot at or harassed by Israeli soldiers. We have more than 1 martyr. In the last decade or so, there's been a lot of resistance within Nabi Saleh, and we lost 4 martyrs.
السنين أو فترة المقاومة الشعبية لقرية النبي صالح خسرنا 4 شهداء اللي هم رشدي التميمي مصطفى التميمي.
And they are Rushdi Tamimi, Mustafa Tamimi, Izzuddin Tamimi. And there was a young man who died in Nabi Saleh whose name is Saba Nidal Ubaid.
اللي اسمه سبا نضال عبيد و يعني قرية نبي صالح كتير.
Nabi Saleh is a point of a lot of resistance. We always say our problem isn't with the settlement, it's with the entire occupation. We can deal with the settlement, but we want the occupation to end.
المستوطن بس احنا بدنا الاحتلال كله يزيل.
Ahed Tamimi, when you were in jail, another one of your relatives, 20-year-old Izzuddin Tamimi, was killed in June after being shot in the back by an Israeli soldier. The Israeli human rights group B'Tselem said his killing was illegal and unjustified. Can you talk about what happened and what you understood when you were in prison?
طبعا كان استشهاد عز الدين التميمي بفترة.
The martyrdom of Izzuddin Tamimi while I was in prison was something very difficult for me. It was very, very difficult. I don't know how to describe the feeling. To lose someone from your family while you're in prison and you don't know what's happened, it was a lot of anxiety. It's a difficult thing.
Can you tell us who Izzuddin was?
Izzuddin يعني مالوش يعني بشيء مالوش بحاجة.
Izzuddin is a very calm, good person. I think he was in the street. I wasn't there, but they told me he was in the street.
بتوقع إنه كان على الشارع لأن أنا ما كنتش بالقصة كلها. حكوا لي إنه كان على الشارع.
He was being pursued after being detained a year ago. So they came to detain him and he ran away. So they shot him in his neck. They let him bleed on the ground until he lost all his blood and died.
ينزف على الأرض تخسر كل دمه واستشهد.
During the time that you were in prison, during this last 8 months, there was a major uprising in Gaza. the nonviolent Great March of Return that started March 30th. The Israeli military killed, at this point, I believe it's more than 140 Palestinians, injuring something like 14,000 people there. Can you talk about what your knowledge of what's happening in Gaza is and what it meant to you in jail and to Palestinians on the West Bank?
مسيرات العودة انطلقت من وقت تاريخ النكبة كانت
The Great Return Marches were launched from the time of the Nakba and continue until today. And the reality is that the people of Gaza are still continuing these marches. We hope that everyone, even here in the West Bank and those outside, be part of the return marches, just like the ones in Gaza. It's not just Gaza that has refugees, but there are Palestinian refugees everywhere, and they should return to their land, to their country.
Ahed, I want to turn to a video of you in December 2012 when you confronted an Israeli soldier demanding to know what happened to your brother who'd just been arrested. I believe you were only 11 years old at the time.
My brother was 15 years old, and so I went and I asked them. I demanded to know, where did you take my brother? He's 15 years old. What can he do to you? But they didn't respond to me. I got angry and frustrated and began to yell at them.
Well, and 3 years later, a video went viral that showed you biting an Israeli soldier who was holding your brother
on the ground.
This is when they were going to detain my brother, who was 12 years old. He was trying to detain him, so I tried to take my brother back from the hands of the soldier.
Well, many people, Ahed, have remarked on your courage in undertaking such protest at such a young age. Where do you get such bravery from?
All Palestinians have courage. It's different from one person to another. But I grew up in a family where I got used to seeing prisoners, the injured, and martyrs. It reached a level where we were just saying enough with the occupation. So I decided to break the barrier of fear so I can continue defending my land.
I want to read from an article in The Guardian. It said, quote, Ahed is a member of the second generation of Palestinians to grow up under occupation. Her father, Bassem, was born in 1967, the year Israel seized the West Bank, East Jerusalem, Gaza, and the Golan Heights in the Six-Day War. He and his children have known only a life of checkpoints, identity papers, detentions, house demolitions, intimidation, humiliation, and violence. This is their normality, The Guardian writes. Can you speak in your own words about what life is like growing up under occupation?
Imagine going to your school and finding a checkpoint, so you're prevented from going to school because of this checkpoint, or from going to your university or work. Or imagine that every day the military enters your town and keeps firing gas and bullets, and you're constantly afraid that someone will be killed, or that they'll detain someone. There's a constant fear that you'll lose someone in your family. The occupation is extremely difficult. To look at the settler who's on your land while you're barred from it, it's really so difficult.
Ahed, you've been hailed as the icon of Palestine following this latest protest of yours. Your response to that and where you see yourself in the struggle for Palestine?
I'm very proud that I can be a symbol of the Palestinian cause. I hope that I can live up to this title and that I'm able to spread the message of the Palestinian people and the men and women in prison to the whole world.
What would you like to see happen?
I hope for the liberation of Palestine, for the end of the occupation, for us to be able to go anywhere we want, anytime we want, without anyone preventing us from doing so.
The classes you took, you finished high school in an Israeli prison. What are the classes you took? Who taught you? What kind of discussions did you have behind the bars?
We were taught by the prisoner Khalida Jarrar, and we would learn mathematics, Arabic, English, history, geography, science. We used to take international law classes as well. We took a lot of these different classes.
And did you discuss your own imprisonment as a child and discuss the issues of international law and occupation?
طبعا كنا بدورة القانون الدولي.
Khalida Jarrar used to teach us about the international law and about all the different conventions within it. We would go through all the violations that happened to us.
وإحنا نشوف شو بتعارض معها أو شو انتهاكات صارت معنا. يعني نحط.
I didn't have a female soldier with me during my interrogation, but according to the convention, there was supposed to be a female soldier with me during the interrogation. So we would always tie these things together.
فكنا نربط هاي الشغلات ببعض دائما.
And Ahed, you plan to become a lawyer. Explain why you want to study the law.
So that I can use the law to defend the Palestinian cause for liberation.
Ahed, your brother is a student at Birzeit University nearby your village in the West Bank. Do you plan to go to a Palestinian university, or will you go to college outside?
I
haven't yet decided where I want to study. I haven't decided and I'm still not sure.
Is your brother at the university now or in prison?
My brother is currently in prison. He was detained while I was in prison.
Would you consider studying in the United States?
I'm still not sure. I still haven't thought about it at all. I've just got out of prison. I just haven't had time to really sit and think about what I want exactly.
And Ahed, what is your message to the United States? What would you like people in the U.S. to know?
I thank everyone who supported me and stood with me in the United States. I urge all the people, all the populations everywhere to put pressure on their governments to support the Palestinian cause.
You have made a distinction, Ahed, between Jews and Zionism. Can you explain the difference?
There's a huge difference between Judaism and Zionism. Judaism is a religion. You know, it's just like Islam. It's just like Christianity. But Zionism, that's the occupation. That's the killing. That's what closes checkpoints. That's what detains innocent people. That's all Zionism that's causing this conflict with Palestinians.
And what did it mean to you when you were in jail? The international solidarity, both on the West Bank and Gaza, within Israel, and around the world.
It was something that kept my spirits up, of course. I hope this strong solidarity continues to extend to all the rest of the prisoners, men and women who remain in prison.
Your mother was in prison for as long as you were, nearly. And she was released with you. Did you see her in prison? And can you explain why she was imprisoned?
I used to see her from 10:30 in the morning to 1 o'clock, and from 2:30 to 5. We were not in the same room, of course, but we were in the same section.
And why she was in jail?
She was detained because... I'm not sure. They accused her of... I'm not sure. Because she came to me during the interrogation. It's unclear to me why they detained my mom.
I know you have to go, Ahed. Do you plan to continue your activism?
Of course, I will continue down this path that I've started, and I will never give up until the day Palestine is liberated.
17-year-old Ahed Tamimi speaking to us from her home in Nabi Saleh in the occupied West Bank. She was released last week from an Israeli prison after serving an 8-month term. The 17-year-old activist became a hero to Palestinians and many others around the world after a video went viral showing her slapping an Israeli soldier near her family's home just after had learned her cousin had been gravely wounded by an Israeli soldier who shot him in the head using a rubber-coated steel bullet. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report.
Well, first of all, I want to comment on the administrative detention where you can just extend someone's imprisonment. You can just extend someone's imprisonment and they don't even know why they're in prison. Like, how is this? This is against United Nations Human Rights Convention under the Geneva Convention, and they're imprisoning children. And I'm also glad that Ahed Tamimi differentiate Zionism versus the religion of Judaism, because if we look at the news, they want to make it, oh, you know, Muslims versus Jewish people or Christians versus Muslims. We shouldn't put all of one religion in one box, and I'm glad that they differentiate that, because as soon as you put, that's what they want to do, is like as soon as you have two religions and have them as if they cannot coexist, because they were already coexisting in the past. So I'm glad that Ahed Tamimi, oh gosh, differentiate that, and because we can see, like I can already see how in the mainstream media they're gonna say, oh my gosh, she doesn't want, you know, Jewish people to stay there in Israel. And I'm glad that she said, yes, it's okay to have those, even though they're illegal, those settlements, just let us be free. Let us be free. That's all she wants. So she's not advocating for Jewish people to leave. She just wants them to have freedom. Giving freedom to the Palestinian people doesn't mean less freedom for Jewish people. They can work it out. And absolutely under no condition should be children be imprisoned. And she didn't even have her basic international law respected. She didn't have a female person, soldier, or even her lawyer during her interrogation. And she's so young. Oh my gosh, like the bravery that she has is inspiring. Anyways, guys, I really enjoy this kind of videos because we can have a dialogue, and I think that's the beauty of YouTube, of internet, is let's have a dialogue. Comment down below your thoughts on the situation. I will do the segment after the next one because today's news is well put. I love democracy now. Anyways, guys, if you like this kind of video, subscribe, comment down below your thoughts, and please be respectful and give me a thumbs up because that really helps me out a lot, and share to your friends and family who's interested in this topic so we can open up the conversation and move forward with a solution, because the international community needs to be at the seat of the table of this, so that way there will be a resolution. Have a good day. Bye, guys.